but I can now upload the Zoom courses into the folder I had set up for our classes. So my goal is to put up the Zoom course recording. So for those folks who missed it, who've missed a few of those, they'll be up on Blackboard pretty soon. But again, it takes me, because of my wireless and my internet, it takes a good 2 hours for those things to upload on Blackboard, but we're gonna make it happen. So, that's the goal for even the folks that have missed the class. Hopefully, you all will be able to, see the past classes and see what I've covered so far. So that's that. Hold on one second. I seem to have gotten an email from somebody who, I don't know if they're able to get the link or not. Let's see. Still 2. Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. Give me one second, y'all. All right. Yeah, what I'm trying to do, y'all. I know we all have like email issues and different things like that, and Wi-Fi stuff. So I'm also definitely thankful for you all that are still logging in for the classes and stuff. Um, I'm still learning how to do this working from home stuff, but yeah, we're gonna hit a groove eventually. All right. So first of all, do good morning, and do any of you all have any questions so far, just currently about this, about class and everything? So I think a few of you have emailed me about like kind of being gone and some issues and such, as far as trying to get work in, and I'll do my best to uh, correspond with you in order to make sure you get your work in. I'm not super penalizing people on their late things and stuff, because we've had such a break, kind of chaotic time. But I definitely want to thank you for making those deadlines if you've been able to. So I appreciate that. So at the moment, any questions so far? Oh, did we lose somebody? Uh-oh. Okay. All right. Well, last Thursday, our last class meeting, I do believe we talked about, and you all can help me out. I do believe we went over, I read to you all the short fiction sampler from chapter 5, where I read all 3 of those short stories, Love and Other Catastrophes, the mixtape, Girl, and Slide to Unlock. Am I correct? I did read those to you last Thursday, right? Someone give me like a thumbs up, or you could turn the volume on and be like, yes, you did, Professor Brown. Anybody remember that? Okay, thank you, Torres, for letting me know. All right, gladly. So if you missed that, I definitely will be putting that up onto the folder for this class, which is past classes, for the Zoom recordings and stuff. You should be able to access it. But yeah, basically on Thursday we talked a little bit about what the elements of fiction are, and understanding it, and then we read the short fiction sections, those 3 stories, and we generally just talked about how short fiction works, from the fact that it can be non-traditional, and because it's shorter than novels and stuff, it may not have those elements that we usually find in fiction. So I also went over chapter 7, which was plot, and when I was talking about plot, pretty much, if you remember Freytag's pyramid, can I get a thumbs up? Everybody remembers that plot pyramid from drama? Somebody? Oh, okay, there's some people jumping in. There's coming in. All right, they're just coming in. Okay, so for those of y'all who remember, welcome. If you're just coming on to the class, I'm kind of doing some overview on what I was talking about on Thursday. So again, Thursday, we talked about the basics of fiction. What is a narrative versus what is fiction, and that was one of the questions for your last reading response number 8, about the difference between narrative and fiction. And then we went over what short fiction was and the different subgenres of short fiction. And then I talked about how the major differences between short fiction, besides the size of what's being written, because short fiction can be several, like it can be from microfiction to several short pages. And then the one big thing I talked about is how I'm about to pick up the whiteboard, and I'll do this again. It's your favorite friend of mine, Freytag's pyramid. and that's also known as, plot structure. And just like theater or drama, the plot structure is the same for fiction and drama, although there are some small differences. So don't laugh at my handwriting. I'm amazed that I can write this legibly with this little pencil that I have. So plot structure, we know that's my man Freytag, plot structure pyramid, and we got exposition, then you got rising action, then you got climax, falling action, and then the resolution of the denouement. So the wild thing is though, like I said before, the difference really with fiction, and especially if you go short fiction, is there's a certain point where on Freytag's pyramid, because these folks don't have that much time or that much space with short fiction, because you have some short fiction that's like 1,500 words, 1,000 words, microfiction, flash fiction, real short. So most writers will have to jump straight into the action. And so that's why I read you those three uh, short fiction stories to show you how even short fiction can still have compelling stories, even if they don't have all of the elements of Freytag's pyramid. So in most cases, you in short stories and fairy tales and myths kind of count as short stories too. Sometimes they don't spend a whole lot of time with exposition. Like their exposition will be real short. They'll be like, once upon a time, here's the name of the characters, here's where everything is going on. Boom, let's jump into the action. And so Love and Catastrophe is a mixtape. They don't even give you the name of the characters. They just give you the titles of these songs, and they give you the artists who perform the songs. And through the titles of the songs, you figure out the story. So again, even there's still that order of what goes down, what the conflict is, what's the climax of the story, which in Love and Other Catastrophes, a mixtape, the climax is basically it's two people meet, the titles of the song show you that the person's alone, they meet somebody, they're in love, the relationship builds, they get married, everything's all well and good, and then we get to the climax, which is somebody's cheating in the relationship. The person that the main character met, their partner is cheating, sleeping with somebody else, and then the falling action is the breakup, and then the resolution is that character is right back where they were at the beginning. Um, Girl is written in the voice. It's really two conversations. It's a mom talking to a daughter. The daughter only gets two words in edgewise, and really that short story is pretty much a almost like a monologue or of a character just talking, 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 talking. Little girl just has one thing to say, but through it, we find out what we need to know about the main characters and about kind of like why the mother is saying what she's saying to the daughter. And then lastly, you got Slide to Unlock, which, spoiler alert, if you haven't read it, I'm still going to read it. The way it's written is literally like thoughts inside of someone's head as they're thinking about all the ways in which you try to remember passwords. For all of y'all that have passwords for your phone, we Slide to Unlock, for your laptops, for any other accounts, the story is literally this person going over all the things that help them remember passwords, history, life, friends, family, their daughter. And then the twist of it is in the story, we find out that the character is being robbed at an ATM. And that's why they got to remember their passwords because the robber is taking their phone, has a gun in the back of their shoulder, and it's literally like, you need to remember that, hurry up, stop stalling, which is a word that keeps showing up in the thoughts of the main character. And basically, I think he's pretty much getting robbed. He's trying to remember his password so he doesn't get shot. So that's what we're talking about. How short stories, very little room, but they can still make stories happen even if they have to cut out a whole bunch of exposition and stuff. Like those um, Law and Order, SVU shows where they open the show, they jump right into the action, somebody dead, and then you got to kind of figure out, you already know who the characters are, and they just go into it. So short fiction, plot, um, and in plot, the other stories that you were supposed to read, if you ever read, and we talked about this last week, which is The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin, and How to Talk to Girls at Parties by Neil Gaiman. Those are the other two short stories that definitely talk about plot. They're very plot heavy. And again, it just follows the same little thing that we talk about, Freytag's pyramid. So those were some of the main things that we were focusing on. So far, does this ring a bell for everyone? Can I get a thumbs up, show of hands? Chapter 7 plot. Okay, James is like, I was there. I remember. Taylor's like, right on. Okay, and maybe even if you weren't at the class, but you've read so far and followed the calendar, you should be good to go. Now, some things that are changing. I'm still working on these dates. Number one, I posted your reading response number 9. I was trying to have it up. Oh, there's. I was trying to have it up yesterday, but aside with my other classes with my other school, it took a minute to get that done. So I posted your your reading response number 9 this morning, and make sure you have 5 days to turn it in. It's due on Saturday. So you have until today until Saturday by 11 p.m. to have your reading response number 9 in. And oh, okay, that's what folks jumping in. All right, well, everybody's in the day. All right, you got almost half the class up in here. So good to see you all. So for those of y'all that are jumping in, I will have a recording of this class and some of the past recordings of this class up on Blackboard. It's going to take me a minute because the MP4s have a lot of data, and with my wireless and then also with Blackboard, it takes a minute to pull that up. But I will have the past classes up so you all can check that out. But where we are now, we're going to talk a little bit about chapter 7 and chapter 8. And I'm trying to think, did we talk about chapter 8 last Thursday or not? Because chapter 8 is about character. So thumbs up or thumbs down, or just, you can say no or something. Did we cover character on Thursday? If someone wants to turn the mic on and be like, yes, no, or we could do this. Let me bring up the chat room. So I think we cover.
I don't think we talked about
Okay.
character.
On Thursday. Okay, cool. That works for me because character's not going to take too long. And what I love about this course is literally between poetry and drama, we've covered most of the elements that fiction talks about. Because if you remember, everything is storytelling. Poetry, even drama, all of that comes out of the element of telling a story and repetition so people can remember things. So some of the same elements that we've talked about as far as characters are concerned in our last section on drama, the same thing goes down in fiction, just like the plot pyramid or the plot structure that Freytag showed us, that triangle thing. You can also apply that to your fiction. But what I'm going to do right now is hopefully this will work. There's a lot of you on here, so thank you all for jumping on. I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to pull up, if I can find it. It's hiding from me. I'm going to pull up the chapter that deals with character, which is chapter 8. Because again, some of the same things that we talked about with characters in drama, the same thing still shows up in fiction. So character. Let me know if you all can see the screen. I hope y'all can. I know it can get a little blurry when more people are on this Zoom call, but so far, can you all see the first page with my finger on it? And trust me, that's my thumb and my pointer finger. That's not the middle finger. I'm not flipping anybody the bird, so it's all well and good. But can you see? Okay, y'all can see it. If you can say yes, or there is a little thing at the bottom of your screen that says reactions. It's like a little smiley face, and you should be able to either put up like a raised hand or a thumbs up. So for those of y'all that can see it, cool. I'm going to assume that everyone else can. So the key thing you need to know about character, we already know what we need to know about characters. They're characters that we love, that we watch, that we follow, that we live for. Then there are characters that we absolutely, truly hate, or we love to hate them. And kind of the same thing in drama. A character, as far as fiction goes, is basically a character is a fictional, I'm going to say that again, a fictional representation of a person, usually a psychologically realistic depiction. So you'll see a character and they kind of match up to maybe human beings that you see on the street, but they're just fictional. So that's that. The thing is, when writers, versus Playwrights, when they're writing a character, they don't have to put in so much detail because you're going to watch these characters on the screen. You're going to see what they physically look like. But if you're reading a book or a novel or especially fiction, the writers got to do all the work. They got to tell you what the character looks like, what they eat, how they walk, what their weight is, eye color, all these different types of things. So, they have to write, show you the character's physical appearance, how they speak, their gestures. So they got to kind of do a little bit more than just your average playwright. So generally speaking, characters' personality traits, as well as their appearances and their feelings and beliefs, are communicated to readers in two ways. First, and it's true, the writer is telling you about the character. Like, here comes such and such. Third person narrators can provide information about what characters are doing, saying, and thinking, what experiences they've had, what they look like, how they are dressed. And just as I've been trying to drill into you about when you write your essays, you write in third person, he, she, they, or one. That's how a lot of fiction writers write. So if you think about a fairy tale, once upon a time there were three little pigs, and they lived with their mother. One day the mother gave them money and said, "Little pigs, I want you to go out there and seek your fortune." The first little pig was studious, so he built his house out of bricks. The second little pig enjoyed wood, so he built his house out of sticks. The third little pig was lazy and built his house out of straw. So that's what we're talking about. You kind of give them some personalities and little traits like that. But that's how fiction works. So the other thing is some narrators or writers will give you their judgment on these characters. Like I just said, the character, when I said the little pigs, one said one pig was studious, the other one said the other pig liked to work with wood, the third pig they said was lazy. So as it says here in the chapter, sometimes these narrators also offer analysis and judgments about a character's behavior or motivation. So that's the key thing. It's all that stuff you're going to learn about the characters is what the writers tell you. Okay, let me add someone else in here. All right, well, thank you. For those of y'all that are joining, I'm in chapter 8 right now of character in my textbook, and I'm talking a little bit about the similarities between characters and the characters in fiction are pretty much connected to the same little aspects that we look at in drama. So if you got the book in front of you, we're on page 156 and 157. And here's something that's familiar. Round and flat characters. We've seen this before in drama. And it's real simple. Round characters, well developed, closely involved in and responsive to the action. And flat character, barely developed, stereotypical. So those are some of the things that we're talking about, and those things are used today. When I think of round characters, you all can think of stuff. So let's see, did we cover a character on Thursday? I asked that question. So if you want to think about something, let's think about a round character. We talked about this in college. That's one of the things we did. Like, a round character. And so in this case, can you all, and I'm gonna go ahead and type here in chat. When I think of, let's see, a round character, again, that's a well-developed character. That's a character that almost feels like you know them or they're a human being. That type of thing. So when I think of a round character, for me in a story, I would think of probably, and I don't know if any of y'all know this character, but Easy Rawlins. He is a detective from this series of books by the author Walter Mosley. He's a round character because he's the protagonist. He's a round character, the main character, and he's had, I think there are over 13 books on this character. And so because there are 13 books on this character, I've watched him over the years grow. And that's the other thing about a round character. I've seen the good in his life. I've seen the bad. I've seen his mistakes. So sometimes it happens. So there are over 13 books on this character. And he's changed. And I know a whole lot about his life. So if y'all want to, if you could type in, or if you want to speak on, is there any round characters that you can think of that you've read of where you're like, oh yeah, this person is definitely almost like a walking, living, breathing character, even though they're fictional. But anybody got any characters that they can think of that represent a round character where you're pretty much like, oh yeah, that's a full person right there.
I'm currently reading this book and it's called Fly Girl.
Fly Girl,
And hmm the
Omar
main
Syrian,
character, yes.
I know it well. Uh-huh.
So Tracy would be like the round character, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because she goes through some changes. She definitely does. That's
hmm
the truth, especially with a round character. Anybody else? Any characters that they've seen that they've watched where you've been like, wow, that definitely is a full character. You know, you can type it into chat. Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I I watched this show. It's called Teen Wolf. There's this guy. His name is Scott.
Yeah.
Like from being nothing, like a this loser kid to this strong guy, and he's helping people no matter what. Yeah, I think he's a round character. Yeah.
Okay. And he's the main character too. Yeah, Teen
Yeah.
Wolf. I remember that series. Teen Wolf was also an '80s movie with Michael J. Fox playing the main character from way back in the day. So there's that. Anybody else? Can you think of any round characters where you're just like, and matter of fact, I would say even villains count as round characters. You know, even though we hate them, um, they still can count. Anybody got an idea of a round character that is a hated character? Okay. Oh, Kevin Pearson on This Is Us. Okay. Not saying that that's the villain, but just that's a round character as well. Yeah, I mean, we see these characters go through the changes. Oh, let me bring in jumping in. Okay. So yeah, that's one of the things that we focus on with round characters. Another thing, and this is a term that we also saw um, in drama, is not, black characters are the ones where they're not really doing much. They're just kind of there. Black characters are sometimes seen as like sidekicks. They're not really real people. They just kind of have um, one action. And in this case, I want to move down to the bottom. Unlike major characters, minor characters, which are the flat characters, they're not fully rounded characters. And most of the times, if they're flat characters, they act as foils. So if y'all remember, I talked about foils in drama. And a foil is a supporting character whose role in the story is to highlight a major character by presenting a contrast with him or her. So if you've read A&P, which you should have, that's part of the character chapter, and it's a short story by John Dyke. And yeah, there's Sammy is the main character. He's the one that's actually telling the story in first person, and he has like his friend who's a sidekick named Stosky. And Stosky is kind of like he doesn't show up much, but you kind of figure out right away what Stosky does. And like I said, foils kind of help the main character stand out. So to go back to y'all again, and I mentioned this before, if you think about sitcoms and characters, if we talk about flat characters, like characters who are just kind of like there, they're sidekicks, like Robin from Batman and Robin, clearly a sidekick. But can you all think of any other stories where there are flat characters or their foils where they're around, but they're just kind of there. You don't really get their whole backstory or their lives, or you see them even change, but they're just kind of there. You can look at sitcoms. There are all sorts of sitcoms where the main character has like that crazy friend that has like a catchphrase or something. So that's what we're talking about. There's always a main character that's doing their thing, but there's always a side character that's kind of like around. So when I think of characters, for me, it always goes back to Martin. I'm gonna say it like that. So Martin, like Martin Lawrence, he played all these different characters that just had one particular action. So like whether he played old Otis, the security guard, who was there to be the old crazy man who beat up people, or he played Dragonfly Jones, the kung fu dude who's missing his teeth, and basically every time you see him, he's fighting his assistant. The assistant wants his money, or he's fighting the old lady. Then there's Jerome, player from the Himalayas. They have that one role, but you don't know much about Jerome's backstory. But that's generally what we're talking about when we're dealing with foils. Or any sitcom or any movie where you have like the main mean girl and then she's surrounded by a bunch of other girls who may have little side comments and stuff, but you don't get their whole story. So that's what we mean when we're talking about character and round characters and flat characters. And that's generally how it works. The next thing, and this is something else you've seen before, the other thing that you can see is stock characters, which are easily identifiable types who behave so predictably that readers can recognize them. In books, especially in fiction, the kindly old priest, the tough young bully, the ruthless business executive, and the reckless adventurer are all stock characters. Some flat characters can even be caricatures, which sounds like character, but it's literally like half of that. Caricatures are characterized by a single dominant trait, such as miserliness, or even by one physical trait, such as nearsightedness. So yeah, these are kind of how the flat characters work, stock characters. So if you go into a story, you know, there's all these stories. There's like the old man, there's the old witch, there's the fool, there's the bully, there's the, you know, the sad lost person. So all these things kind of tie in. Now these next two things, be very specific about this. We've talked about round characters, but dynamic and static characters are very interesting. So you could put dynamic with round characters, all right? So round characters are those fully developed characters that got a life and you know their backgrounds and stuff. But the other thing about round characters, they can also be dynamic, which means they grow and they change in the course of a story, developing as he or she reacts to events and other characters. So you also have that. You can watch a series, and so someone mentioned the guy from This Is Us, and in This Is Us, you can see how this character has grown. I know they do flashbacks with certain characters, so you see them when they're young and you see them when they're older. That makes a dynamic character, and it's basically a character who comes out of something changed. And the thing is, you also have static characters, and a static character may face the same challenges a dynamic character may face, but will remain essentially unchanged. And the thing is, static characters, that doesn't mean that they're bad. So for example, you may have a character who's a good person, and they go through all this terrible stuff. And then at the end of the story, they're still that good person. So maybe the bad stuff didn't affect them. So in that case, they're static. But it's still okay because they come out as a good person. Example, Cinderella. She had a terrible stepmother, the stepsisters, all that stuff went down with her. She, you know, the flipper, all that type of stuff. Even after her wicked stepmother and her stepsister tried to play her, at the end, she was still nice at the very end. Like her character didn't change. So there we go. That's a static character. So yeah, just keep that in mind when we're talking about all this stuff. So yeah, those key things are very important. Now, this next term, this is the thing I really want you all to pay attention to. And this is something that wasn't in drama, but it's very, very important when it comes to characters and for your most recent reading response that I just posted today, reading response number 9. So remember, round characters, they're complex. We see a whole bunch of their sides. So because round characters are complex, they are not always easy to understand. They may act unpredictably, excuse me, just as real people do. They wrestle with decisions, resist or succumb to temptation. So they're human, they make mistakes. And sometimes a character may do something and we're like, okay, I don't believe that that person would do that. But what makes a really strong character is if you were able to get information about their background, like maybe their youth or their families. And so if you know their background, then you kind of have an idea that when they do something or they take an action or they react to something, because you know their background information, we now believe that it's plausible, meaning it's believable. So what is important is not whether we approve a character's actions, because there's so many characters out there that do foul stuff. I don't know if anybody's watching Ozarks on Netflix, but I know a lot of people talk about how that show, violence just happens super randomly and crazy stuff goes down. But then you can look at the characters and be like, okay, I get it. But basically, what is important is not whether we as readers approve of the character's actions, but whether those actions are plausible or believable, whether those actions make sense in light of what we know about the character. We need to understand a character's motivation, the reasons behind his or her behavior, or we will not believe or accept that behavior. So, for example, Sergeant Waters, we watched the film, we read the play. All the stuff that he does, all the evil stuff that he does to CJ Memphis, how he beats up Peterson. Does any of that stuff seem unbelievable? So you can say yes or no. All the ill stuff that Sergeant Waters has done to people. When you look at him do it, are you shocked or you're like, yeah, I can see him doing that?
I mean, kind of both.
Under both? Okay, so talk to me about the stuff where you're shocked. What made you shocked about some of the stuff Sergeant Waters did?
Just because, like, now, like, you wouldn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't, and especially for him being African American, like, you wouldn't expect for him to do that. And all the other men was, like, African American, so you wouldn't expect him to treat them that way.
Okay, gotcha. And so, and that's from, I'm just going to say, is that from your perspective of now, looking at back in the 1940s, seeing him do that? Is that where you were like, oh man, that's the
Yeah.
shocking part? Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, I understand it. So, what makes you say, okay, I can see why he did that? Not saying you agree with what he's doing, but you can see why what he does is believable, like some of the terrible things. So, what is it
Just
that makes you go, yeah, you believe it?
just because, like, after, like, I got used to his behavior, then I was like, okay, now I see, like, this is the type of person that he is. And then when he started to go into his background a little bit about how he was treated, then it made sense.
Boom, there we go. And that is what we're talking about, excuse me, when we're dealing with these characters, especially motivations. So, these papers that you just turned in with the character analysis, that's one of the key things that I was asking you to do is one of the questions I asked was like, if a character acts a certain way, can you provide information on his background to show you exactly and make sense of why he does what he does? So yeah, nobody writers sometimes they're not writing just to say, okay, I hope you agree with what my character does. There's so many characters that do so many horrible things, but and people are like, oh my God, that's terrible. But at the same time, you can go, oh man, well, because I know what that character's been through, I now know what that character is capable of. So for any of you that watched the shows like I forget the name of that show with the serial killer who like he kind of like fights for justice or he kills other serial killers. You have that. You kind of have a understanding of these characters and why they do what they do. And so that's why motivation is very important in this chapter on characters because those are some of the things that you definitely need to look at. I'm gonna bring up one other thing. So when you're writing about characters, and yeah, you all worked on these papers, and this will help you possibly with your second draft of the character analysis paper. But this is some of the checklists of what you kind of look at when you're going through a story and you've read it and you're going over it again. So you got to know who the main character is, who are the other major characters if there are any, who are the minor characters, what roles did they play, how would the story be different without them, or would we even miss them? What do the major characters look like? Is their physical appearance important? Because remember, we're reading fiction, so people are describing stuff to us, or maybe the physical description doesn't matter. There was once a big controversy with J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter when she put out that play, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and so when they cast all the characters, Hermione was played by a black woman, and people were upset. Like, oh wait, what are you doing? Hermione's not black. Hermione's not black. And there was a point where J.K. Rowling said, "Well, yeah, I described Harry Potter. I described, the Weasleys and such." She said, but she said, you know what? If you really look at the description of Jenny, she actually could be a black girl. She could be any race at that point. She said, I just gave you. She said she just gave her descriptions like she had like curly hair, frizzy hair, and some other things. But that's really interesting when you think about that. Is how people attach themselves to characters or even appearances in that case. But I don't know. I'll ask another question. In reading fiction, do appearances matter to you in the stuff that you read or that you see? And I think we talked about that before, where you may read something and then you see the film and you're like, I didn't expect him to look like that. But is the story more important to you, or what the characters look like? Does that matter the most? So just wondering, anybody that wants to kind of chime in, let me check and see who sent the email. I hope someone isn't left out. Uh-oh, let's see. Okay. Okay, folks, just jumping back in. All right. Anybody, you can type into the chat room. But again, let's try to make these conversations something that we all join into. So I'll type in the chat room um is character appearance, and I can't spell. Is character appearance more important to you than the story? Yes or no? And if yes, I really want to know this. Why is character appearance more important than story? I don't know. They say don't judge a book by its cover. So yeah, let's see, put that there. Why is it? Wow. So there we go. So you can type in whatever you want. But what I'll say is this. So let's see if I even have my book. So behind me, this is kind of like my own personal library. So some of the stuff you can't necessarily see. But I have mad books back here. So bringing up Easy Rawlins again, there's a character in Devil in a Blue Dress, which is the first book about Easy Rawlins by Walter Mosley. And so they describe this character he's a sidekick. He is a minor character, but he actually plays a bigger role in the story. He's the best friend of Easy Rawlins. His name is Mouse, but don't trip over the name Mouse because he's actually a killer. He's pretty much psychopathic, but he's also Easy Rawlins' best friend, even though Easy Rawlins, to a point, is kind of scared of him. And in the book, Mouse is a pretty dude. So Mouse is like fair skinned. He's kind of got like the curly hair. He's kind of got those Michael Ealy green eyes, those eyes and stuff. People go, oh, pretty. But in the book, I don't know how to explain to him. He's a savage. He'll not so much that he like just wiles out on people, but he could kill somebody and then just go and sip a drink and do whatever, like it's not a thing. So that's how he was seen, as this pretty boy, fair-skinned pretty boy from Texas, along with Easy Rawlins. And when the movie came out back in like late 90s, Denzel Washington plays Easy Rawlins, and Don Cheadle, who plays War Machine, if you remember from Iron Man, he's been in a bunch of other different things. He plays Mouse. If you've seen Don Cheadle's a small dude. He's maybe 2 shades darker than Denzel Washington. He's not a built dude. Denzel Washington's taller, but yet Mouse or Don Cheadle played that character so well that for a lot of people, when they went back to the books, all they saw was Don Cheadle. But Don Cheadle captured that character really well. And so that's just one of the things I think of. The story is still great, but in this case, that's one of the times where an actor almost literally like took over the role and became this character, even though he didn't physically look like him. So let's see. Someone wrote no. Character appearance is not more important than the story. And development is more important because it allows the story to progress as it's supposed to. That was from James. So cool. So for James, the story is still the thing for you. You're like, give me the good story. And I bet. I think that's good. Oh, Ahmed is on. Ahmed, my bad, Ahmed. Come on in. So yeah, again, that's the main thing that you all should look at, especially when we're talking about characters, especially in chapter 8. Motivation is the big thing. You want to know, what's behind why the characters do what they do. Now, in my last class, I actually read A&P, excuse me, which is a pretty long story. It's a short story, but it's a good one. I read it in full for the last class. I don't think I'm going to do that at this time because it's just a lot of reading. So, how many of y'all have actually read A&P in chapter 8? Mm-hmm. Anybody? I don't see no thumbs up yet. Mm. Well, I'll reiterate again. You got to be able to catch up on your readings. So besides reading A&P, um, and reading how to talk to girls, what is it? How to talk to girls. Then the other story was gracious, a story of an hour, and then those other three short stories that I read last week. You should work that out. Okay, so but let's see how to explain A&P. Again, you should definitely read it because one, it's told in first person, as in the main character is telling the story from their perspective as they experience it. So they're talking, they're writing in first person. They're using I. So what I'll do instead of reading the whole thing, I actually have an excerpt of A&P. So what I will do, just for y'all, because I don't want to lose my voice, but I will see if I can pull up A&P, and I will share it with you all so you can at least get an excerpt of it. So it's about, if you're looking for it in your textbook, it's on page 160 and it ends at 165. So lengthy short story, but it's still a pretty good short story just the same. So let me get back to this, and I'm going to pull up the story itself, and I'll read you an excerpt. So real quick. So, but y'all need to read it. Okay. All right. So I think I'll just read this first page. So if you can see it, I think I know the screen because there are a lot of people on the Zoomcast. The screen may be a little blurry, but again, if you have the text in front of you, remember the story is on page 160 and it goes to 165. So I'm gonna read this, and then I'm gonna get some water, and we'll work that out. So, all right, if y'all ready, can I get a thumbs up from folks? In the little window that you have, like just give me a thumbs up. Somebody, anybody, are y'all awake? Are you alive? Give me a thumbs up, somebody, so I can know that you are present.
What page is it?
What page is it? It is page in your textbook. It is page 160. It's called A&P. What I'm looking at on the screen is just from another document, so I didn't pull the book up. But this is the story. So in your textbook, chapter 8, page 160. All right. Here we go. A&P. All right. And remember, the main speaker is Sammy, and this is in first person. So you're going to hear a lot of I. All right. A&P. Oh, yeah. Also, by the way, this story takes place in 1962. So if you're listening to it, you'll be like, yo, what's that? You'll hear some terms that are kind of 1960s. So let's do it. A&P. So in walks these three girls in nothing but bathing suits. I'm in the third checkout slot with my back to the door, so I don't see them until they're over by the bread. The one that caught my eye first was the one in the plaid green two-piece. She was a chunky kid with a good tan and a sweet, broad, soft-looking can with those two crescents of white just under it, where the sun never seems to hit, at the top of the backs of her legs. I stood there with my hand on a box of hi-ho crackers, trying to remember if I rang it up or not. I ring it up again, and the customer starts giving me hell. She's one of those cash register watchers, a witch about 50 with rouge on her cheekbones and no eyebrows, and I know it made her day to trip me up. She'd been watching cash registers 40 years and probably never seen a mistake before. By the time I got her feathers smooth and her goodies into her bag, she gives me a little snort in passing. If she'd been born at the right time, they would have burned her over in Salem. By the time I get her on her way, the girls had circled around the bread and were coming back without a push cart, back my way along the counters, in the aisles between the checkouts and the special bins. They didn't even have shoes on. There was this chunky one with the two-piece. It was bright green, and the seams on the bra were still sharp, and her belly was still pretty pale, so I guess she just got it, the suit. There was this one with one of those chubby berry faces, the lips all bunched together under the nose. This one and a tall one with black hair that hadn't quite frizzed right, and one of these sunburns right across the eyes, and a chin that was too long. The kind of girl other girls think is very striking and attractive, but never quite makes it. as they very well know, which is why they like her so much. And then the third one, that wasn't quite so tall, she was the queen. She kind of led them, the other two, peeking around and making their shoulders round. She didn't look around, not this queen. She just walked straight on slowly and on these long white prima donna legs. She came down a little hard on her heels as if she didn't walk in her bare feet that much, putting down her heels and letting the weight move along to her toes as if she was testing the floor with every step, putting a little deliberate action into it. You never know for sure how girls' minds work. Do you really think it's a mind in there or just a little buzz like a bee in a glass jar? Side note, I don't like Sammy. I really don't think he thinks much of girls anyway, but that comment about like a girl's mind is nothing but a little bumblebee. But anyway, my bad, y'all. Let me get back to the reading. But you get the idea. She had talked the other two into coming in here with her, and now she was showing them how to do it. Walk slow and hold yourself straight. She had on a kind of dirty pink, beige maybe, I don't know, bathing suit with a little nubble all over it. And what got me, the straps were down. They were off her shoulders, looped loose around the cool tops of her arms, and I guess as a result, the suit had slipped a little on her. So all around the top of the cloth, there was this shining rim. If it hadn't been there, you wouldn't have known there could have been anything wider than those shoulders. With the straps pushed off, there was nothing between the top of the suit and the top of her head except just her. This clean, bare plane of the top of her chest down from the shoulder bones like a dented sheet of metal tilted in the light. I mean, it was more than pretty. She had sort of oaky hair that the sun and salt had bleached, done up in a bun that was unraveling, and a kind of prim face. Walking into the A&P with your straps down, I suppose it's the only kind of face you can have. She held her head so high, her neck coming out of those white shoulders looked kind of like stretched, but I didn't mind. The longer her neck was, the more of her there was. She must have felt it in the corner of her eye, me over my shoulder, Stokesky in the second slot watching, but she didn't tip. Not this queen. She kept her eyes moving across the racks and stopped and turned so slow it made my stomach rub the inside of my apron and buzzed to the other two, who kind of huddled against her for relief. And they all three of them went up to the cat and dog food, breakfast, cereal, macaroni, rice, raisins, seasoning spreads, spaghetti, soft drinks, crackers, and cookies aisle. Ooh, that's a long line. From the third slot, I looked straight up the aisle to the meat counter and I watched them all the way. The fat one with the tan sort of fumbled with the cookies, but on second thought, she put the packages back. The sheep pushing the carts down the aisle, the girls were walking against the usual traffic. Not that we have any one-way signs or anything. Were pretty hilarious. You could see them when Queenie's white shoulders dawned on them, kind of jerk or hop or hiccup, but their eyes snapped back to their own baskets and on they pushed. I bet you could set off dynamite in an A&P and the people would by and large keep reaching and checking oatmeal off their lists and muttering, let me see, there was a third thing began with A, asparagus? No, yes, applesauce, or whatever it is that they muttered. But there was no doubt this jiggled them. A few house slaves and pin curlers even looked around and after pushing their carts past to make sure what they had seen was correct. You know, it was one thing to have a girl in a bathing suit down on the beach, where with that glare, nobody can look at each other much anyway. And another thing in the cool of the A&P, under the fluorescent lights, against all those stacked packages, and her feet paddling along naked over our checkerboard and green and cream rubber tile floor. So yeah, that's Sammy for you. And so yeah, this is what we gotta deal with. With this story. So if you read more, you'll find out again a lot more about who Sammy is as a character. From my jump, I know he's the main character. I know that guy Stosky or whatever is like his co-worker. He doesn't know the girls' names. He kind of gives them nicknames. But yeah, I'm not sure how old this dude is. Well, he actually mentions how old he is later. But I know he's not an older guy. And just the way he kind of talks makes me go, okay, he's young. But anyway, this is what we got to deal with when we read through short stories. And we learn about the characters either through what the narrators of the story, if it's third person, tell us about the characters, or in this case, it's first person, we learn about the characters through what they say. Very much like if we go back a couple chapters to that short story by Jamaica Kincaid called Girl, where it's primarily the mother talking. And she's just talking. And that way, that's how we're kind of getting an idea of who these people are by what they say and how they say it, and even what motivates them. So, yeah, that is generally why you definitely need to read these stories. So again, you got to read A and P, and then of course you should also read The Girl with Bangs, and that's in chapter 8, and that's with character. But I wanted to drop a couple of more announcements on you about class. So again, I'm working my hardest to get your short paper number 1 second draft responses in. I've gotten to a few of y'all, but I'm still working my way through it. Grading your short paper number 2 character analysis, so you'll be able to write a second draft. I'm definitely working on those too, and so I hope to have them done by midweek or Thursday, so I'll be able to give you a date for short paper number 2s if you want to revise them in order to get higher scores. Or if you like your score and you're like, Professor Brown, I love it, I'll take that, and we can do that. Because what's coming up, again, is we have really a short paper number 3, and which will turn into your long analysis paper. We have a unit exam, which is stuff you read, which is stuff that's based on what we've read before, if you ever find it. And then we have, I'm going to give you a view of what the short paper overview number 3 is going to look like today, and then I'll post that on Blackboard. And the way that we're going to kind of work through these next few weeks is there will be a week where we will not meet in as far as like classes. So what we'll do is we'll have a talk, and I'll set up conferences on Zoom, and I'll set up some times where you can sign up for it so we can talk about what your paper is going to be for short paper number 3, like your topic and what you're going to take, because short paper number 3 is going to become your long analysis paper. Now, in my other classes, people have been asking, Professor Brown, are we still going to have to do that anthology because we have less time? By the end of the week, I'll have an idea of whether or not you'll have to do the anthology or not. So we may just keep it to just the final papers, and then I may give you all, who knows, maybe a smaller project to do. So I don't want to wear y'all out because y'all are doing so much to stay, up on the classes and stuff. So week 13, which is April 20th to the 24th, we're going to be having Zoom conferences. Or if you want, we can have conferences by phone using my, what do you call that thing? My Google Voice number. So I'll give you the dates right now. We'll talk a little bit about short paper number 3, which is a compare and contrast paper. And I'll pull that up, and you all should be good to go, and I'll explain a little bit of that. Okay? Right, cool. All right, so let me go to share the screen, and let me pull up the document. All right. Y'all can hit the thumbs up button if you can see this. That would be great. All right. All right. Thumbs up. Okay. So short paper number 3 is a compare and contrast paper. Your thesis proposals will actually be due the week we do student conferences. And remember, short paper number 3, there is no first draft. You just turn in short paper number 3, and the score you get for short paper number 3 is what stands. Because remember, the first 2 papers are where you get to have the revisions. But short paper number 3 is not going to do that. So the assignment description is as follows. You can write a compare paper or a contrast paper, or you can do both. You can write a compare and contrast paper using 2 different works from all the things that we've read or the films that we've watched from the first week of classes till the 13th week of classes, all on April 20th to the 24th, that week. So you'll have to decide, what element, you can use 1 or 2 elements that you want to use to show the comparison or the contrast between the 2 pieces that you pick. So let's say you decide, you know what, I want to show the comparison between 2 poems, and I want to show how the themes and the settings in these 2 poems are similar. And so once you pick that, your thesis should make a larger point and not simply be a listing of the similarities and differences. So let's say you pick 2 poems and you decide you're going to look at theme and setting. But what you're going to do is you're going to show how theme and setting can either show, can either affect the poem, or how the two elements that you're comparing teach a lesson or show the continuity of a problem or issue over time, or dispel a long accepted truth. So that's generally it. So a thesis example would be, you decided to consider, let's say you decided, I want to compare the protagonists from Casca Amontillado, which is a short story that you'll be reading later, and Grief Management. And so you're going to show how the protagonists from Casca Amontillado and the Grief Management, this is just an idea, reveal how point of view can be used to create unreliable narrators that force the reader to question, and I'm missing a spot, but that should be, to force the reader to question if the story should be believed or not. So basically, your essay content would show how both of these characters from these two stories, like you said, could be characterized as unreliable because they're possibly liars, and how this affects how you would look at the story or even believe it, or what the reader has to do to fully appreciate the effect of the narrator's states on the other characters. To make it a little bit easier, let's say you decide you want to look at Sergeant Waters as an antagonist, and then you look at another antagonist from another story, like let's say one of the stories that you should be reading or have read yet. What would I call the story? The Story of an Hour. And you're looking at how both of the antagonists, you look at the antagonists and you talk about how the antagonists are similar, and how the ways that they are similar affect how the story is told, or it teaches a lesson or shows continuity of a problem or issue over time. So I'll try. Oh, someone's in the chat. Is the second draft paper optional? Let's see. If you're talking about, the second draft for short paper number 2. Okay. It is optional. I mean, if you feel like you like the score that you got for, let's say if you wrote short paper number 1 and you like the score that you got for short paper number 1, you do not have to redo it. You just say, I'll stick with that score. Okay? All right. So yeah, the second drafts are optional, but I think most folks are always like, "Ooh, I could do better," especially after maybe I provide like some commentary and stuff on your papers. You're like, "Ooh, I can raise up my grade." So yeah, it's still an option, but most people want to pick that I want more points option. So we got that. So anyway, if I were writing short paper number 3 and I was comparing some things, like I would say, all right, I'm going to pick there's all sorts of things you could pick. Like I could pick, let's see. I'm at a loss for words, but there's different ways that we can work that out. So one of the things that we'll do during Thursday when we meet up in class is there's a section on your calendar, which we didn't go over today because I'm kind of moving things around. But one of the things it says is student conferences, which is going to be shifted, and I'll put those date shifts on your Blackboard announcement so you know what we're doing. But we're going to talk about writing literary arguments, which is what a comparing short paper number 3 really is a literary argument, where you're pretty much saying, this is the point I'm trying to make, and this is how it works. And all these things I've been showing you is how to do a literary argument. When you're making an argument, you're making a point about a piece of literature or 2 pieces of literature, and you're going to have to prove it. So when we get back together on Thursday, we're gonna go over chapter 2 in your textbook about writing literary arguments. So that'll help you to really kind of understand, what we're doing with these final papers. And as usual, definitely read the short stories that you need to. And then we'll also cover chapter 10, which is about point of view, which is really great because there's so many ways in which stories can be told in fiction with different points of view. Like I always get on y'all's cases about when you're writing your short papers, you were to write in third person, he, she, they, and then no I, but one. So you got third person. First person, that's like that personal essay. That's the I believe, I think, I saw this, we, us, that type of stuff. Second person is you all, that type of thing. It's almost like you're writing an essay. It almost feels like an op-ed, like you're writing someone saying, do you believe this, this, and this? But you're just writing in third person. That's what we're about with these papers. So keep that in mind. So again, just to back everything up, please read the short stories that have been assigned. So that means finish up reading A and P. Definitely read The Girl with Bangs. The Story of an Hour, which is in chapter 7, and How to Talk to Girls at Parties. That's also chapter 7. I'm going backwards. Chapter 5, which has short stories. You definitely should read Love and Other Catastrophes and Mixtape, even though I read those last Thursday. And Girl and Slide to Unlock. And what I'm planning on doing now is this course, this particular class I've recorded. So I will, once I'm done recording, it'll take a couple of hours, but I will post a recording of this class and past classes onto a folder on Blackboard. So if you need to go back and look over things, they will be up on Blackboard. But it might take a good 4 hours because between wireless and how long it takes for Blackboard to upload like MP4s and videos, it might take a minute. But those are the key things that I need for you to do in between now and to the end of the week. The easiest thing you can do right now is go ahead and answer that reading response number 9 because it is up. And generally, that's all I have for you right now. Again, if you have any questions, I will be available by my usual office hours that are during this time. So again, if you have my Google Voice number, if you need to call or send a text and you have a question, it'll go to my Gmail, or I can pick up on my phone and it'll tell me who's calling, and we can talk about papers and such. So at this point, are there any questions? Going once, going twice. All right, no more questions, but thank you to everybody who keyed in. There's 11 of you all on here, so I appreciate that you were able to make it. Some of you all, I know there's still some emails that you sent me about late papers and things like that, or trying to catch up on past assignments and such. So at least give me some time today to try to work my way through those emails and respond to your questions. And I'm also spending a good portion of my day going through my class sections and grading what I need to grade. But again, I appreciate you all for coming to class virtually. We're still making this thing happen, so I appreciate you all very much. Hopefully you all are staying safe out there. And that is the close of class for today. So again, email me, call me through Google Voice if you have a question. Even I'll stick on here for a second if you wish to talk to me through Zoom. But yeah, take care, and I will see you all Thursday. All right. Okay, I see there's still 2 people on here. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Oh, you're welcome. All right, no questions. All right, I am about to stop the recording of this class, and that's going to take a while to upload, and I'm about to close this conference off. So thank you for being present for the meeting. Stay in touch. All right.